The massive repair bay of Deep Space Station 42 buzzed with activity as ships of all shapes and sizes hovered in their designated spots. Through the enormous transparent aluminum windows, distant stars twinkled like diamonds scattered across black velvet. This was humanity's busiest repair hub, floating in the space between three major trade routes. Tom Richards stood at his workstation, rubbing his chin as he studied the damaged hull of the latest arrival. The ship belonged to the Galactic Alliance, its sleek purple metal skin now scarred by what looked like an encounter with a micro-meteor storm. Most repair stations would simply replace the entire hull section. That's how things were done in the more advanced parts of the galaxy. But not here. Not at Tom's station. "What's the verdict, boss?" asked Mike, one of the younger mechanics, walking up with a tablet in hand. Tom ran his hand over the damaged section, feeling the rough edges of the impact points. "Get me the sonic welder and some of that earth steel we keep in storage. The good stuff from Pittsburgh." Mike's eyes widened. "Earth steel. But boss, this is advanced Galactic Alliance hull material. The manual says." "The manual," Tom interrupted with a smile, "was written by people who never had to fix a tractor with duct tape and baling wire." He pulled out his favorite wrench, an old-fashioned metal tool that always drew strange looks from alien visitors. Sometimes the old ways work best. Above them, the ship's captain, a tall, blue-skinned being with 4 arms, watched nervously through a viewport. Like most Alliance captains, he probably expected the entire hull section to be replaced, a procedure that would take weeks and cost a fortune. Tom and his team got to work. They carefully cut away the damaged sections, prepared the earth steel patches, and began the delicate process of sonic welding. The alien metal and earth steel shouldn't have worked together according to most technical specifications, but Tom had discovered years ago that with the right technique, they bonded better than either material alone. As they worked, more alien ships arrived at the station. Word had spread across the galaxy about Deep Space Station 42. Humans might be newcomers to interstellar travel, but they had something no other species could match: centuries of experience fixing things with whatever they had on hand. "Remember the first Alliance ship that came here?" Mike asked as they worked, carefully adjusting the welder's frequency. "They thought we were crazy when we pulled out physical tools." Tom laughed. "They still do, but they keep coming back." He stepped back to inspect their work. The repair was nearly invisible, the earth steel perfectly bonded with the alien hull. Most species out there, they developed matter replicators before they really learned to fix things. They never had to keep an old car running for 10 years past its prime. The repair took 6 hours, a fraction of the time a full hull replacement would have needed. When they finished, the blue-skinned captain came down to inspect the work. His 4 eyes blinked in surprise as he ran a scanner over the repair. This is stronger than the original hull," he said, mandibles clicking in amazement. "How did you achieve this with such primitive materials?" Tom smiled, tucking his wrench back into his belt. "Sometimes primitive is exactly what you need. The repair will hold better than new, and it cost about 1/10 of what you pay for a replacement." The captain's skin shifted to a lighter shade of blue, a sign of pleasure in his species. "The stories we heard about this station, they were true. You humans truly are repair wizards." As the Alliance ship prepared to depart, 3 more vessels entered the station's repair crew. One was an ancient mining craft, another a sleek courier vessel, and the third, Tom squinted at the readings. The third was something he'd never seen before. "Boss," Mike called out, staring at his tablet. "You need to see these scans. That third ship, according to the database, it's using technology that shouldn't exist anymore. It's a precursor vessel." Tom grinned, already reaching for his toolkit. This was exactly why he loved his job. Every day brought new challenges, new problems to solve. And if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was solving problems that others thought impossible. "Well," he said, Let's show them why they came to the right place. The precursor vessel hung in the repair bay like a sleeping giant, its ancient hull patterns shifting in colors that shouldn't have been possible. Jane Miller walked around it, her toolbox clutched in one hand and a bewildered alien engineer following close behind. "You can't possibly fix this," the alien engineer said, his crystalline body reflecting the ship's changing lights. "The warp drive is using technology that's been lost for 10,000 years. Even our best stations couldn't understand it." Jane pulled a simple stethoscope from her pocket, an actual old-fashioned medical tool that her grandfather had given her. "Sometimes you don't need to understand everything about a machine to know what's wrong with it." She pressed the stethoscope against the hull, closing her eyes to listen. The alien engineer watched in confusion. "What are you doing?" "Our quantum scanners showed nothing." "Shay," Jane whispered, moving the stethoscope to different spots. "Listen." She handed the stethoscope to the engineer, who reluctantly held it to where she pointed. His crystalline form flickered in surprise. That sounds like a rhythm that's off," Jane finished. "Like a car with bad timing. The technology might be ancient, but machines are machines. They all have rhythms when they're working right." She opened her toolbox, which always drew attention from alien visitors. Unlike their sleek, automated repair units, Jane's box was filled with what looked like junk to most species: old wrenches, pieces of wire, various types of tape, and tools she'd modified herself. "Tom," she called out to her boss, who was reviewing data on a tablet nearby. "Remember that issue we had with Bill's tractor last summer? The timing belt problem." Tom looked up, then at the massive alien ship, and grinned. "You think it's the same principle. Different technology, same problem," Jane said, pulling out a modified wrench. "The warp drive's timing is off. It's not about the advanced tech, it's basic mechanics." They got to work. Jane climbed into the ship's maintenance shaft, which was clearly designed for beings much larger than humans. She carried with her a mix of advanced tools and what looked like scraps from Earth's industrial age. "Hand me that piece of copper wire," she called out, "and the quantum phase aligner." The alien engineer watched in horror as Jane literally tied together part of the ancient warp drive's control system with copper wire. "That's not in any repair manual. It's not even compatible technology." "That's exactly why it'll work," Jane explained, carefully adjusting her improvised fix. "Your manuals assume you have all the right parts. Humans, we learned to fix things when we didn't have the right parts. Sometimes the best solution isn't the fanciest one." As she worked, Tom shared stories with the engineer about humanity's first contact 15 years ago. The aliens had been amazed to find humans still using physical tools and mechanical repairs. They'd assumed any spacefaring race would have abandoned such primitive methods. Then their flagship had a critical failure in orbit around Earth, Tom said, handing Jane another tool. None of their advanced systems could fix it. But Bob Wilson, a mechanic from Detroit, took one look at it and fixed it with parts from an old Ford engine. That's when they realized we might be useful to have around. Jane emerged from the maintenance shaft, grease on her face, but wearing a satisfied smile. "Try it now." The ship's engines hummed to life. The strange colors stabilized, and the quantum readings returned to normal. The alien engineer's crystalline body flickered rapidly in astonishment. "Impossible," he whispered. "The greatest repair stations in the galaxy said it couldn't be fixed without original precursor parts." "Nothing's impossible," Jane said, closing her toolbox. "It's just a matter of understanding the basics. Machines want to work. Sometimes they just need a little help remembering how." As news of the repair spread through the station, more ships began arriving. Each brought its own impossible problems, its own advanced technology that had somehow broken down. But for the humans of Deep Space Station 42, these weren't just repair jobs. They were puzzles waiting to be solved. "You know what the best part is?" Jane asked Tom as they watched the precursor ship prepare to depart. Every time we fix something impossible, we learn something new. Not about the fancy tech, but about the simple things that make everything work. Tom nodded, already eyeing the next ship waiting for repairs. That's why they keep coming back. We don't just fix their ships. We remind them that sometimes the old ways are the best ways. An alarm blared through Deep Space Station 42, its urgent tone drawing everyone's attention to the main repair bay. A massive ship, easily 3 times the size of anything they'd serviced before, was being towed in by 6 emergency vessels. Its hull glowed with a sickly green light that pulsed like a heartbeat. "What in the world is that?" Mike asked, standing beside Tom and Jane at the observation window. "That," said a deep voice behind them, "is the last light. The pride of our exploration fleet." They turned to see a tall alien admiral, his metallic scales reflecting the emergency lights. "And it's dying." Tom studied the readings on his tablet. 7 other repair stations have already declared it unsalvageable. Why bring it here? The admiral's scales rippled. "Because you humans have a reputation for doing the impossible. This ship contains the most advanced drive system ever created by our civilization. But something's wrong with it, something none of our experts can understand." "Let us take a look," Jane said, already reaching for her toolbox. Tom nodded, and they made their way to the ship's main airlock. Inside, the last light was a marvel of engineering. Corridors stretched for what seemed like miles, filled with technology that made Earth's most advanced systems look like children's toys. But something was definitely wrong. The walls themselves seemed to vibrate with an unhealthy energy. "The problem started 3 weeks ago," the Admiral explained as they walked. "At first, just small power fluctuations. Then systems began failing one by one. We've replaced every component we could think of, but nothing works." They reached the central engine room, and Tom whistled. The drive core towered above them, a spinning column of pure energy contained within fields of force that shouldn't have been possible. Jane pulled out her stethoscope again, earning confused looks from the alien crew. She pressed it against various points near the drive core, moving methodically around the room. Tom, meanwhile, was studying the original blueprints on his tablet. "Admiral," Tom said slowly, "when was the last time anyone actually opened up the physical housing of the drive core?" The Admiral looked shocked. "Open it? That's impossible. The core is sealed with quantum locks. It's meant to be a closed system that never needs maintenance." "Nothing is maintenance-free," Jane said, still listening with her stethoscope. "Everything that moves wears down eventually. Basic physics." Tom pointed to a small access panel near the base of the core. "This ship is 15 years old. Want to bet no one's ever checked the basic mechanical components." The Admiral's scales turned pale. But the quantum diagnostics show everything is perfect at the atomic level." "Sometimes the simplest problems hide behind the most advanced technology," Tom said. He pulled out a basic wrench and began removing the access panel, making the alien crew nervous. Inside, behind all the advanced technology and quantum fields, they found something that made Jane laugh out loud. "Look at this, Tom. Just look at it." There, in the midst of the most advanced drive system ever created, was a simple bearing. It was worn out, making the whole drive core spin slightly off-center. This tiny mechanical flaw was creating a cascade of problems through all the advanced systems. "You're telling me," the Admiral said in disbelief, "that our most advanced ship is failing because of a worn-out bearing?" "Not just any bearing," Tom said, examining it closely. "This is actually a brilliant design. It's just that whoever built it assumed it would never wear out." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small metal bearing. "Good thing I always carry spares." The repair itself took less than an hour. When they finished, the sickly green glow faded from the ship's hull, replaced by a healthy blue light. Systems throughout the vessel began coming back online. "I don't understand," one of the alien engineers said. "We checked everything with quantum scanners, artificial intelligence, and the most advanced diagnostic tools in the galaxy. How did we miss something so simple? Because, Jane explained, packing up her tools, sometimes you're so busy looking at the complex things that you forget to check the basics. Humanity learned engineering from the ground up. We started with simple machines and worked our way to the stars. We never forgot those first lessons. The Admiral's scales had turned a bright, happy gold color. 7 stations said it couldn't be fixed. They wanted us to scrap a ship worth more than some planets, and you fixed it with a spare part you had in your pocket. Tom smiled. That's why they call us the Fixers. Now, who's next? The repair bay of Deep Space Station 42 had never been so crowded. Ships from 20 different species hovered in neat rows, waiting their turn. In the observation lounge, Tom watched as yet another fleet of vessels dropped out of warp space nearby. I blame you for this, he said to Jane, who was drinking coffee while reviewing repair requests on her tablet. Ever since you fixed that bearing on the last light, every ship in the galaxy wants to come here. Not my fault their advanced civilizations forgot about basic maintenance, Jane replied with a grin. Look at this one. Their quantum drive is failing, and they think they need to replace the whole system. Bet you it's just a loose connection somewhere. Below them, in the main repair bay, a group of alien observers watched the human repair crews at work. These observers had been sent by the largest repair corporations in the galaxy, desperate to understand why a primitive human station was stealing all their business. Watch this, Tom said, pointing to where Mike was working on a sleek racing vessel. The young mechanic had spread out an old cloth map of Earth's subway systems next to him. One of the alien observers, a floating orb of pure energy, moved closer. Why does he examine an ancient transport diagram while repairing a plasma conduit? Because, Tom explained, subway systems and plasma conduits work on similar principles. They both move things from one place to another through tubes. Sometimes old knowledge helps you understand new problems. The orb flickered in what might have been confusion. Our repair protocols require full replacement of any malfunctioning system. It is more efficient. Is it? Jane asked, standing up. Follow me. She led the group of observers to a repair bay where her team was fixing a cargo ship's navigation system. Instead of replacing the entire system, which would have cost millions of credits and taken weeks, they had opened up the main control unit and were carefully repairing individual components. See that? Jane pointed to a mechanic who was carefully soldering a tiny circuit. He learned that technique fixing old Earth computers in his garage. Now he's using it to repair alien tech that's supposedly unrepairable. The alien observers watched in silence as the repair team worked. One of them, a tall mechanical being, stepped forward. Our companies spend billions on developing automated repair systems, yet you're humans, working with simple tools, complete repairs faster and more effectively. How is this possible? Tom smiled. Because we learned the hard way. On Earth, we couldn't always afford to replace things when they broke. We had to learn to fix them, to understand how they worked. That knowledge doesn't go away just because we have fancier tools now. As if to prove his point, an emergency alert flashed on the station's screens. A luxury cruise ship had just arrived, its artificial gravity failing. The ship's captain, a gelatinous being floating in a containment suit, appeared on the communication screen. Our own repair station said we need a complete gravity system replacement, the captain burbled anxiously. They quoted us 3 months of work. Jane checked the ship's readings and laughed. 3 months? Give me 3 hours. The observers followed as Jane and her team boarded the cruise ship. They watched in amazement as she diagnosed the problem using nothing more complex than a magnetic compass and her old stethoscope. Look at this, she said, pointing to a series of gravity generators. They're perfectly fine. The problem isn't the generators, it's the timing sequence. They're out of sync. Using a combination of modern tools and what looked like modified Earth equipment, Jane's team recalibrated the gravity system. 2 hours later, the cruise ship was ready to depart. Impossible, one of the observers muttered. our diagnostic computers said. Computers are great, Tom interrupted, but they only know what they're programmed to know. Humans, we improvise, we experiment, we learn from everything we fix. As the observers departed later that day, Tom noticed dozens of new repair requests flooding in. Word was spreading across the galaxy. If you wanted something fixed right, you went to the humans. Not because they had the most advanced tools or the fanciest computers, but because they understood something that many advanced PCs have forgotten. Sometimes the simplest solution was the best solution. Ready for tomorrow? He asked Jane as they watched the sun set through the station's huge windows. She patted her toolbox. Always. Bring on the impossible. The warning came without notice. Deep Space Station 42's sensors detected massive solar flares erupting from the nearby star. Red emergency lights flashed throughout the station as Tom rushed to the control room. How bad is it? He asked the station's eye. Critical, the AI responded. Solar flares will reach us in 20 minutes. Current intensity readings suggest shields will fail on multiple docked vessels. Tom looked at the repair bay through the control room window. 37 ships were currently docked, ranging from small personal vessels to massive cargo carriers. Not all of them had shields strong enough to withstand what was coming. Jane, he called over the station's comm system. Get everyone together. We got 20 minutes to save these ships. Jane's voice crackled back. Already on it. Mike's checking shield generators, and I'm organizing repair teams. The station burst into action. Human repair crews ran to their assigned ships, carrying tools and emergency shield generators. Some aliens watched in confusion as humans used simple mechanical tools alongside advanced technology. Priority to the smaller ships, Tom ordered, running down to the repair bay. Their shields are weakest. Jane, take the cargo section. Mike, handle the civilian vessels. I'll coordinate from here. 15 minutes left. Jane's team worked on strengthening shield generators. Instead of following standard procedures, which would have taken hours, they improvised. They connected smaller ships to larger ones, sharing shield power between them. Like jumping a car battery, Jane explained to a confused alien captain. Basic electricity doesn't change just because we're in space. 10 minutes left. Mike discovered that several civilian ships had compatible shield systems. Tom, he called over the radio. Remember how we daisy-chained power supplies during that blackout in Detroit? We can do the same here. Do it, Tom ordered. He watched as Mike's team quickly connected multiple ships together, creating a shared shield network. It wasn't in any repair manual, but it might just work. 5 minutes left. 3 ships still don't have adequate protection, the AI announced. Tom looked at the readings. They were older vessels with outdated shield technology. Jane, he called. Remember that trick we used during the asteroid storm last year? On it, she replied. Her team quickly moved the vulnerable ships into the shadow of larger vessels, using the stronger ships as makeshift shields. They welded emergency deflector plates to critical areas, combining old-fashioned metalwork with energy field modifications. 1 minute left. Everyone inside, Tom ordered. Brace for impact. The solar flares hit like a cosmic tsunami. Energy waves washed over the station and its docked ships. Shield generators whined under the strain. The emergency deflector plates glowed red-hot, but they held. When the flares passed, Tom looked at the damage report. Not a single ship had been lost. The innovative shield-sharing network had worked, and Jane's emergency deflectors had protected the vulnerable vessels. Alien captains and crew members gathered in the main repair bay, still shocked by what they'd seen. A tall, insect-like being stepped forward. Our own repair stations would have needed hours just to assess the situation, it clicked. Yet you humans protected everyone in minutes. How? Tom wiped sweat from his forehead. We're used to emergencies. On Earth, we learned to fix things fast when we had to. Sometimes you don't have time for perfect solutions. You need good enough solutions right now. Jane joined them, her work uniform covered in scorch marks. It's like my old fire chief used to say, perfect is the enemy of good. We did what needed doing with what we had. The alien observers watched as repair crews began fixing the minor damage caused by the solar flares. They used everything from advanced energy tools to simple mechanical wrenches, whatever worked best for each problem. Your methods are unconventional, another alien captain said, but they work. You saved all our ships today. Tom smiled tiredly. That's what we do. Now let's fix any damage those flares caused. Jane, Mike, let's get to work. As the repair team spread out across the bay, the story of how Deep Space Station 42 had saved 37 ships from a solar flare was already spreading across subspace communications. The humans had done it again, proving that sometimes the best solutions came from combining old knowledge with new technology. Just another day at the office, Jane said, picking up her toolbox. Wonder what tomorrow will bring. A week after the solar flare incident, Deep Space Station 42 hosted an unusual event. The Galactic Repair Council, impressed by the humans' performance during a crisis, sent representatives to learn their methods. The station's main conference room was packed with aliens from across the galaxy. Tom stood at the front of the room, feeling uncomfortable in his formal uniform. He preferred being in the repair bay, hands deep in machinery, but Jane had insisted this was important. You want to know our secret? He began, looking at the assembled aliens. Why human repair stations fix things that others can't? Well, I'll tell you, but you might not like the answer. He pulled up a hologram showing Earth. See this? This is where we learned everything important about fixing things. Not in fancy schools or with advanced technology, but in places like this. The hologram changed to show different scenes from Earth's history. A farmer fixing a tractor in a field, a mechanic working on a car in a small garage, a person repairing an old radio with basic tools. For most of our history, Tom continued, we couldn't just replace things when they broke. We had to fix them, had to understand how they worked. Every part, every connection, every little detail. Jane stepped forward, holding up her old stethoscope. Take this. It's not advanced technology. It's not even a repair tool, really. But it teaches you something important. How to listen to machines. How to understand their rhythms. An alien representative, a being made of shifting crystal, raised an appendage. But we have quantum diagnostic tools that can scan down to the atomic level. Why use primitive instruments? Mike, who had been quietly standing at the back, spoke up. Last month, you brought us a ship with a quantum drive problem. Your scanner said the whole system needed replacement. Remember what the actual problem was. The crystalline being's surface flickered in what might have been embarrassment. A loose power coupling. Exactly, Tom said. Your advanced scanners were looking so closely at the quantum level, they missed something any rookie mechanic would check first. That's our secret. We never forgot the basics. He changed the hologram again, showing repair stations across Earth. In India, they keep ancient vehicles running for decades. In Cuba, they've maintained cars from the 1950s. In African villages, they repair complex medical equipment with basic tools. Each culture on Earth developed its own way of fixing things, of making do with what they had. Jane picked up the thread. When we reached space, everyone expected us to abandon these primitive methods. Instead, we combined them with new technology. We didn't replace, we added. To demonstrate, she pulled out her toolbox. Inside, ancient wrenches sat next to quantum aligners. A simple magnetic compass shared space with a subspace field detector. Every tool has its place, she explained. Sometimes you need advanced technology. Sometimes you need a good wrench and some common sense. The trick is knowing which to use when. The aliens watched as Tom began a practical demonstration. He took apart an advanced alien engine component using basic mechanical principles, showing how understanding simple machines help diagnose complex problems. Your civilizations, he said while working, developed replacement parts before you needed repair skills. You never had to keep old machines running, never had to improvise or make do. You didn't learn what we learned the hard way. Mike joined in, showing how Earth's different repair traditions had contributed to their success in space. Brazilian mechanics taught us how to repurpose parts. Japanese engineers showed us the importance of preventive maintenance. Australian outback mechanics taught us how to fix things in isolation with limited resources. As the demonstration continued, understanding began to dawn on the alien observers. Humanity's primitive past wasn't a weakness. It was their greatest strength. So that's our secret, Tom concluded. We're not better than you. We're not smarter or more advanced. We just never forgot what it means to fix something instead of replacing it. Every repair teaches you something, adds to what you know. The crystalline being moved forward. Can you teach us? Tom smiled. That's why we're here. But first, you need to understand something important. The best tools you have aren't in your toolbox. They're in your head and your hands. Everything else is just details. And maybe, Jane added with a grin, start with learning how to use a simple wrench. Trust me, it'll come in handy more often than you'd think. 6 months after the Galactic Repair Council's visit, Deep Space Station 42 looked very different. The repair bay now included training areas where human mechanics taught their methods to alien students. Tom watched from his favorite observation spot as Jane demonstrated the use of basic tools to a group of crystalline engineers. Never thought I'd see the day, Mike said, joining him at the window. Advanced alien civilizations learning to use wrenches and screwdrivers. Tom smiled. They're learning fast, too. That crystal fellow down there fixed a fusion drive yesterday, using nothing but basic tools and a stethoscope. The station's alert system blinked to life, but not with an emergency. A massive ship was approaching, one unlike anything they'd ever seen before. It emerged from warp space slowly, its hull seeming to bend light around it in impossible ways. Station 42, this is the Explorer. A voice came through the comm system. We represent the Combined Sciences Division. We've discovered something unusual. They said you were the ones to talk to. Tom and Jane met the ship's crew in the main bay. The aliens that emerged were from 5 different species, all wearing the gold uniforms of the Combined Sciences Division. They looked worried. We found it at the edge of known space. Their leader, a tall being made of swirling gas contained in a mechanical suit, explained. A ship, but not like any we've seen before. The hologram they projected showed a vessel that seemed to break the laws of physics. Its structure twisted in on itself, making it impossible to tell where it began or ended. It's dead in space, another scientist added. We've tried every advanced diagnostic tool we have. Nothing works. Our best repair stations say it's impossible to even understand, let alone fix. Tom and Jane exchanged looks. Impossible just means no one's figured it out yet, Jane said. Show us. The Explorer towed the mysterious ship into the repair bay. Up close, it was even stranger. Parts of it seemed to exist in multiple places at once. Tools placed near it sometimes duplicated themselves or disappeared entirely. Now this, Tom said, grinning, this is interesting. They spent hours studying the ship, using both advanced scanners and simple tools. Jane's stethoscope revealed rhythms that the quantum sensors missed. Mike's basic electrical meter showed power flows that advanced diagnostics couldn't detect. Look at this, Jane called out, pointing to what looked like a maintenance panel. The design. It's like someone took regular engine parts and twisted them through extra dimensions. But underneath, she tapped the panel with a wrench, producing a familiar ring. Underneath, it's still just a machine. That's it, Tom exclaimed. We've been looking at it wrong. All this advanced technology, these impossible shapes, they're just fancy ways of doing something simple. Mike, remember that old motorcycle engine you rebuilt last year? Mike's eyes lit up with understanding. The one where we had to time the pistons just right. You think. Exactly, Tom nodded. It's the same principle, just working in more dimensions. Over the next week, Deep Space Station 42 tackled its greatest challenge yet. They combined everything they knew, both human repair traditions and alien advanced technology. The crystalline engineers they'd trained joined in, adding their new understanding of basic mechanics to their natural ability to perceive quantum states. Finally, after 7 days of work, they did it. The impossible ship hummed to life, its twisted structure settling into a stable form. How? The science team leader asked in amazement. Even with all our advanced technology. That was the problem, Jane explained, wiping grease from her hands. You were too focused on the advanced parts. Sometimes you need to step back and look at the basics. In the end, every machine follows the same fundamental rules. As news of their success spread, something unexpected happened. Other repair stations began adopting the human approach. Across the galaxy, repair crews started combining advanced technology with basic mechanical knowledge. Ships that would have been scrapped were given new life. You've changed how the galaxy thinks about repairs, the science team leader said as they prepared to leave. You've shown us that moving forward doesn't mean leaving the basics behind. Tom looked around at his station, at humans and aliens working together, at simple tools being used alongside quantum computers, at the impossible ship now humming contentedly in its bay. That's the real secret, he said, not forgetting where you came from, even as you reach for the stars. Now, what's next? What other impossible things should we fix today? After all, Jane added with a smile, impossible is what we do best.